knows the big slashers: Halloween, Friday the 13th, Scream, but horror's back shelves are packed with true cult treasures. Ingenious, terrifying, sometimes downright weird films that hardcore fans swear by, while the mainstream barely knows they exist. 17 of them are about to take center stage. These movies feature practical gore that'll make you flinch, killers with legends deeper than Crystal Lake, and production stories as wild as the murders themselves. So dim the lights, silence your phone, and remember to lock the door because these killers never got their mainstream close up. But they absolutely deserve it. And stick around because our number one practically wrote the Final Girl playbook before America even caught up. Before Jason Voorhees became a household name, The Burning gave us Cropsey, a caretaker hideously burned by a cruel prank and back for revenge. Born from a real upstate New York urban legend, camp counselors whispered about Cropsey decades before the Weinsteins turned it into their first Miramax feature. Filmed during a humid Buffalo summer where 90-degree nights and clouds of mosquitoes soaked every frame in authentic sweat. Effects legend Tom Savini skipped Friday the 13th Part 2 specifically to craft the infamous Raft massacre, a single tracking shot that's still dissected by gore aficionados. A 21-year-old Jason Alexander, yes, George Costanza, rocks tiny gym shorts. Oscar winner Holly Hunter appears for mere seconds. Blink and you'll miss her. Fisher Stevens, later of Short Circuit and Succession, rounds out the soon-to-be famous ensemble. Dismissed as a Friday clone, it now enjoys midnight screening status. Quentin Tarantino calls it the perfect drive-in slasher, and horror fans still pilgrimage to the dilapidated Niagara cabin shooting location. Why it endures. It's a sweaty, mean, handmade time capsule of early 80s indie horror that proves practical gore can outshock any CGI. Imagine Michael Myers giving a TED Talk on murder. This mock doc invites us to watch a would-be slasher plan his big debut, then flips into a full-on horror film once the hunt begins. Shot in Oregon on a shoestring, the crew borrowed local news cameras to get that authentic documentary look. Premiered quietly at South by Southwest, where word of mouth from horror bloggers ignited its cult following. Director Scott Glosserman deliberately studied Halloween and Friday so he could both honor and dismantle their tropes. Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, shows up as a weary slasher hunter winking at decades of horror lore. Kane Hodder, Jason himself, appears briefly as a neighbor. Blink and you'll miss the ultimate crossover nod. The film's final act abandons the mock doc style, snapping into cinematic terror that critics still call a masterstroke. It remains a classroom example of a meta horror done right. Think The Shining meets Friday the 13th, but buried under endless snow. Filmed high in the Jotunheimen Mountains, where temperatures often dipped below minus 20 degrees Celsius, cast and crew endured real avalanches and 16-hour nights. Every visible breath is genuine. Norwegian folklore of Fjellventregna mountain survival rules inspired the killer's isolationist backstory. Cinematographer Daniel Woldheim uses natural moonlight to turn every slope into a frozen cathedral of dread. The killer's costume, a weather-beaten parka, and face mask became iconic enough to spawn 2 sequels and a prequel. Launched a wave of Scandi slashers and proved Norway could deliver Hollywood-level scares on an indie budget. Still screens at winter film festivals where the audience literally shivers. Long before survival horror video games borrowed the name, this early 80s gem imagined the night a city goes completely dark and 4 homicidal escapees roam free. Shot almost entirely on location in Hoboken, New Jersey. Real police officers assisted with late-night street closures to stage the massive blackout, giving the film that lived-in East Coast grit. Director Jack Shoulder, later of The Hidden, wanted the city as predator vibe, every alley a potential ambush. Donald Pleasant, fresh from Hollywood fame, plays a psychiatrist with unsettling ambiguity. Jack Palance and Martin Landau choose scenery as unhinged killers, elevating the material far beyond drive-in expectations. Critics originally dismissed it as a crime thriller with extra blood, but fans now hail it as a bridge between 70s urban paranoia and full-on slasher chaos. Its blackout set pieces even influenced later New York horror like Maniac Cop. This Italian masterpiece fuses Giallo style with slasher body count, trapping actors inside a theater where art and murder share the stage. Directed by Dario Argento, protege Michael Soavi, who insisted on shooting in an abandoned warehouse to capture authentic crumbling grandeur. Budget restraints meant the crew slept on set for weeks, giving the film a weird, lived-in energy. The haunting synth rock score became a cult vinyl collector's prize. A single unbroken tracking shot follows the owl mask killer across the catwalks as bodies fall. Film school legend. Soavi's painterly lighting drenches scenes in neon blues and hellish reds, making every frame pop like a nightmare painting. Long overlooked outside Europe, it's now celebrated for marrying Italian elegance with American slasher ferocity. A World War II veteran returns home with a vengeance, stalking a small-town prom in full combat gear. Director Joseph Zito, later of Friday the 13th, the final chapter, shot in Cape May, New Jersey, where the sea fog provided natural atmosphere. Once again, effects guru Tom Savini pushed the envelope. The bayonet through skull gag still makes seasoned horror fans gasp. Released during the early 80s slasher glut, it was overshadowed by bigger franchises but quietly impressed gore enthusiasts. The film's blend of post-war trauma and small-town innocence adds a surprisingly heavy emotional undertone. Set in Nova Scotia mining town, this Canadian classic gives us a killer who turns love into lethal payback. Filmed in an actual working mine 900 feet underground, humidity ruined camera equipment daily. The MPAA famously slashed nearly 9 minutes of gore. The restored, uncut edition is now a collector's dream. Local accents, regional folk songs, and real miners as extras give it an authenticity few slashers match. The heart-shaped candy boxes concealing actual hearts remain one of horror's most memorable props. Fans pushed for decades to see the uncensored version, and today it stands tall as Canada's greatest slasher export. Funny yet scary. 10 certified pics, link on the screen. We're only halfway through and the body count's already brutal. If you could bring one of these underrated slashers back to theaters for a big screen revival, which would you choose? The snowy dread of Cold Prey, the carnival chaos of the Funhouse, or the creepy mass mystery of Alice, Sweet Alice? Drop your pick in the comments and tell us why. We'll feature the best answers in our next video. Before overnight retail shifts were a meme, Intruder turned a late-night grocery store into a neon-lit slaughterhouse. Written and directed by Scott Spiegel, college friend of Sam Raimi, and Bruce Campbell. Filmed entirely after closing hours in a real Los Angeles market, the crew raced the dawn to reset shelves so shoppers wouldn't notice. Tiny budget, huge creativity. Spiegel strapped cameras to swinging doors, produce scales, and even a meat hook for dizzying point-of-view shots. Sam Raimi and his brother Ted cameo as butchers. Bruce Campbell pops up as a cop in the final scene, classic Evil Dead reunion. Initially dumped straight to VHS, it's now praised for inventively using mundane supermarket objects, price scanners, deli slicers as murder weapons. Tobe Hooper followed Texas Chainsaw Massacre with this claustrophobic carnival nightmare where teenage thrill seekers spend one fatal night inside a traveling fair. Shot on an operational Florida carnival, filming began after midnight when crowds left, leading real grime and authentic creaks. The mutant killer's mask, half clown, half demon, conceals a tragic backstory of parental abuse that gives the finale unexpected pathos. Universal marketed it as a generic slasher frustrating Hooper, but the moody, slow burn dread is pure auteur craft. The film's funhouse set became so iconic that Universal reused pieces for Halloween Horror Nights decades later. This cult classic asks the chilling question, what if the person sworn to protect you is the monster? Written by exploitation legend Larry Cohen and directed by William Lustig from Maniac. Shot almost entirely at night on New York's Lower East Side during the late 80s crime wave. Real cops sometimes mistook the prop weapons for the real thing. Star Robert Z'Dar's naturally massive jawline gave the killer an otherworldly silhouette. Bruce Campbell plays the framed hero. Tom Atkins brings his trademark grizzled charm as the detective. The killer's tragic backstory of wrongful imprisonment adds an unexpected moral twist. Spawned 2 sequels, inspired comic books, and even influenced later corrupt cop thrillers. Years before Halloween, this New Jersey chiller fused Catholic iconography with raw slasher tension. Shot entirely on location in Paterson, New Jersey, using real churches whose parishioners sometimes appeared as extras. The low budget meant locals doubled as crew. Neighborhood kids reportedly dared each other to sneak onto the eerie set. Director Alfred Soule endured church protests accusing the film of blasphemy, which ironically boasted its underground buzz. Features an 11-year-old Brooke Shields in her film debut. Critics were stunned by her poise. Paula Shepherd, who plays Alice, was actually 19, adding to the unsettlingly ambiguity of her child performance. Banned or cut in several countries on release, it's now hailed for its mix of murder mystery, religious guilt, and proto-slasher structure that predates Carpenter's Halloween by 2 years. When a celebratory prank accidentally kills their house mother, a group of seniors try to hide the body until a vengeful killer starts picking them off. Filmed in an actual Maryland sorority house during summer break, students returned mid-shoot, forcing the crew to hide props daily. Director Mark Rusman drew inspiration from Agatha Christie's 10 Little Indians for the one-by-one structure. Low budget meant practical effects. The infamous cane impalement scene used hidden tubing and hand-pumped blood for a disturbingly realistic gush. Often overshadowed by Prom Night, it has since earned cult status for its sharp mix of glossy college atmosphere and moralistic edge. The 2009 remake nods to this original, but fans still swear the eerie freeze-frame ending can't be topped. Daily horror news and lists at likehorror.com. An artist haunted by nightmares retreats to a remote island vacation, only to find her dreams may summon a real-life monster. Filmed on Tybee Island, Georgia during an actual hurricane season, some storms footage is 100% real. Director J.S. Cardone blended surreal dream logic with straight slasher tension, creating a story where viewers question every shadow. Cast and crew used empty seasonal homes as sets. Locals still point out the Slayer house to curious fans. Long overlooked, it's now championed as a bridge between supernatural horror and grounded stalk and slash, perfect for fans who like a dose of nightmare ambiguity. Canadian chill meets theatrical drama in this tale of 6 performers competing for a coveted film role while a killer slashes through the audition list. Notoriously troubled, shot over 2 years with major reshoots after the original director was replaced. That production chaos gave it a patchwork, dreamlike quality. Scenes jump from glossy stage lights to stark winter landscapes. The porcelain mask and ice skating murder became instant VHS cover icons. Though it barely played theaters, horror magazines of the era raved about its atmosphere, and modern critics now cite it as one of Canada's great genre exports. Predating Halloween by 4 years, this Canadian classic virtually wrote the slasher rulebook. Sorority house, holiday setting, unseen killer. Director Bob Clark filmed on location in Toronto during a brutal winter, using the cold to heighten the film's icy dread. The obscene phone calls were performed by multiple voice actors layered together for maximum unease. Its ambiguous ending, killer still in the attic, shocked audiences and frustrated censors. Spawned 2 remakes, but the original remains definitive. Influenced John Carpenter directly, he has said it inspired Halloween's POV shots and final twist. Still screened annually at holiday horror marathons, proving that Christmas can be terrifying. A shy cameraman murders women while filming their final moments, decades before found footage existed. Released the same year as Psycho, but Britain's press condemned it as obscene, effectively ending director Michael Powell's mainstream career. The killer's custom camera tripod, modified with a hidden blade, was built by London prop makers who later worked for early Bond films. Initially vilified, it is now hailed as the proto-slasher masterpiece, influencing everyone from Scorsese to De Palma and inspiring countless POV kill sequences. Sergio Martino's Italian Giallo bridges art house elegance and brutal body count. Shot around Perugia and Rome with lush and sun-drenched cinematography that contrasts vicious murders. The extended final girl sequence, a nearly wordless cat and mouse chase, directly influenced Halloween and Friday the 13th. Praised by Quentin Tarantino and modern horror scholars, it's the perfect capstone, a film where European style meets the slasher template that America would soon make mainstream. From icy Norwegian peaks to carnival midways, these films prove that slasher well is far deeper than the usual suspects. So next time someone claims the genre begins and ends with Halloween or Friday the 13th, hand them this list and watch their weekend disappear in glory bliss. If you're craving even more mass mayhem, cue up our best slasher movies of the last decade, top 10 picks, the perfect next kill count for your watch list.